I believe we have Joie Tyrell. Hello, Joie.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you calling in. So, you got the story this week. The Long Island schools alert parents and guardians to changes in immunization rules.
Right.
Okay, what do we got there?
Well, in mid-June, the governor signed legislation that eliminates the religious exemption for vaccinations. And what that did is any parent who had a religious exemption as to why their child should not be vaccinated to go to a school, either public, private, or a daycare setting, will no longer be able to claim that exemption. This is a controversial change, and there was a number of protests and a number of people when the bill was signed who were strongly vocally opposed to it. But given that there had been outbreaks of measles, mostly in the religious communities in Brooklyn and Rockland County, the governor signed this as a health measure to stem any further measles outbreaks.
Right. Yeah.
And now what's happening is that happened in June. I believe it was June 13th that Governor Cuomo signed it, made it a law, and it was an immediate law.
Right.
And what that did was that school districts had to alert parents, and specifically their parents. Most of the nurses in the school districts have their the exemptions on file.
Okay.
So they knew the parents they had to reach out to. So they reached out to them and said, you have to have your children immunized in order to go to school in the fall. This also applied to summer school. So for some school districts, and I would say it's a small group of students who had religious exemptions, they had to contact them immediately and say, before you start summer school, your child needs to be immunized.
Mm-hmm.
And now the only way that a child can receive an exemption for going to school is a medical exemption, and that is from a certified physician. So it really, the school districts have no choice. They don't make the decision. This is a law. This and they have to follow it.
Mm.
So that's what happened. And a number of parents that I've spoken to who had claimed the religious exemption are looking into options such as homeschooling or forming a homeschool cooperative. And one of the leaders of this movement said that some of them, who lived upstate might consider, if you live on a border, sending their child to a private school that's across the border. But for Long Island, we really, there really is no option like that.
Right.
So,
I mean, do we have an issue with that in public schools on Long Island? Are there that many kids who are not immunized?
I don't have the numbers for Long Island. It wasn't broken out that way, but that I had access to. But I know that overall, it's more than 96% of students are immunized. It's a very small number that are not, and I would think on Long Island that percentage is probably even smaller than that 4%. Because you saw the concentration of the measles outbreak, like I said, in Brooklyn and upstate Rockland County. But I did hear from parents, and a number of parents who had religious exemptions and who are unhappy about it. But I only heard from a handful so far.
Right. Huh.
And it's interesting. The state education department, the State Department of Health, and the Office of Children and Family Services have been very proactive in letting school districts know what they have to tell parents. There's certain deadlines that they have to meet. I believe if you show up on the first day of school and you don't have the immunization, you have to show that within 14 days you've made an appointment for the first dose.
Okay.
So there are procedures that they have to follow that we will detail coming up in Sunday's Newsday.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you that if how do they find out, and then if school's already started and the kids are dispersed through the school, what do they do? Go in the classroom and take the kid out, but everyone else has already been exposed.
No, well, yes. I'm a parent of two public school children, and every summer we get the form that comes in the mail, and we have to send it to the nurse that shows that my children, have the proper immunizations, along with things like emergency contacts and that. And the nurses are very on the ball on checking and making sure those are in order.
Right.
So I would think within the first week or so that they would be able to know who was there and who needs to get their paperwork in.
Right. So this is interesting to me, because now it looks like the line is drawn between people don't want to get it is predominantly the religious objection, not that they're objecting to vaccines. These aren't anti-vaxxers necessarily.
Well,
okay. Some of them are, and they're just using the religious route.
Yes, that's what I've heard. I haven't confirmed it, but some of them say we just don't believe in the science of vaccines, so they claimed the religious exemption.
Okay.
I have heard that from others, but I haven't been able to confirm that. Okay. And there have been, some people have said, well, where, what religion does say that to not get a vaccine? I haven't really been able to pin that down. My story looks more like how the school districts, for them, they were given no choice. This is now a law.
Right.
It came in June. They had, not a lot of time to get the word out, but they're getting the word out, and they're doing it in several ways. Like I said, they're contacting the parents of those who had religious exemptions directly, but they're also posting things on their website or sending letters home to the general public and letting them know, we have no choice in this matter. This is now a law.
Well, it's mind blowing. We had a discussion here on at the station about. Obviously, some people are just against vaccines, and my question is always, what's their objection? Us standing on a soapbox, putting a finger in their face and telling them they're stupid doesn't appear to be working. So, what are their objections, and what answers can we give them, unless they're just vehemently denying science?
Well, that is something that some people say, that they are denying science. There's also some very well organized organizations, such as, I believe, Children's Health Defense, which is run by.
That was my next question. Who's funding? Who's funding it? Because things like this usually don't hang on this long, unless it's got some funding and it's got some, someone with an agenda behind it that can keep pushing these things.
Well, that's Children's Health Defense is that is the organization led by Robert Kennedy Jr. So that's so that seems and though that group has actually filed 2 lawsuits within. One is a state lawsuit and one is a federal lawsuit, saying that it's violating a student's right by having this regulation in place, this requirement in place.
Be mandatory.
So, to having it be mandatory. And I believe one of them has to do with the I think it has to do with the equal education for students with disabilities. I think that's what one of the suits is regarding, but I know there is a state suit and a federal suit, and that Children's Health Defense is involved with both of those.
Right. Well, I can understand in some cases, with children who are generally healthy, that's okay. That's one consideration. But then there are children whose lives are taken up with medical issues, and to introduce another, what you could consider a medicine. I mean, the kid might already be on 92 pills a day and shots and all of these things. So to introduce a vaccine into that cocktail, okay, I can understand having reservations about should I get it or not. But it's a tough question. It really is.
Well, part of the issue is that if you have a child with a compromised immune system who can not get a vaccination but can go to public school but is medically cannot get a vaccination, that if a student comes who's healthy, who is unvaccinated but is carrying, pertussis or measles, that could put some of the arguments have been made that could put that other child's health and livelihood and life at risk.
Yeah, it all goes both ways. It goes both ways for the people.
Wow. But there are very high emotions on both sides. I feel that the people who do not want their children to be vaccinated feel like their rights are being taken away, and that they are being told what to do with their children, and so they are very. It's a very emotional time for them, and some of them don't know what they're going to do. If you're working parents, you can't homeschool.
Right.
We don't really have our schools are usually so good here on Long Island, and people, as you know, move to Long Island
right, just to get the school
district.
Yeah, right.
So homeschooling is not. I don't really see a lot of parents who do. I know there are homeschooled children out here, but I don't think it's that large of a group.
It's also not an easy option to pick.
It's not an easy option, especially Long Island's expensive, and you probably need two parents to work.
Yeah.
And the state of New York is one of the most strictest states when it comes to homeschooling. Mm-hmm. You have to follow 180 days of instruction. You have to submit an educational plan to your home district that has to be approved.
Right.
So there are a lot of hoops to jump through to do that as well.
Right. You don't just get to keep your kids home and watch TV all day, right? And
Right. You have to follow a curriculum.
Well, that's good to know, too.
Yeah.
It is good to know that, too. Yeah.
But other states are lax, are not as I think New York and I think Vermont, few of them that are pretty strict, but in other states they're not as strict. So.
Yeah. Wow. So I guess we're going to be hearing more about this when school opens up. I'm sure there'll be
we will, and also there are those two court cases to watch. They were filed. The court system, it takes time for cases to move through, but they were filed soon after the law was brought into action. So those are some of the parents that I did speak to are hopeful that those court cases will be successful.
Right.
I don't know if they'll be successful in time. I mean, school opens here. Most schools open a couple of days after Labor Day or the day after Labor Day. Yeah. So we're almost it's almost back to school time.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm sure it'll be a continuing saga.
Yes. Yes.
But, Joie, I want to thank you very much for calling in.
Oh, thank you.
Get to talk
great.
about this.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And have a great weekend.
Okay. Thanks, you too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.